The phone buzzed at 3:07 a.m., breaking the fragile quiet of Emily's dorm room. She blinked at the glow and her chest froze when she read Daniel's words, "We need to talk." Emily whispered, "No, not this way." The sentence carved through her heart like glass. She sat still, shivering under her blanket as the lamp painted faint shadows across peeling walls. Every promise Daniel had ever made echoed louder than the silence that followed his message. He once told her, "You are my world." Tonight those words felt like lies, heavy and cruel. Emily pulled the blanket tighter, but her trembling hands betrayed the fear growing inside her. She stared upward, unable to cry, unable to breathe, trapped between hope and dread as her phone burned like a warning against her skin. Emily stared at the ceiling as Daniel's words repeated like thunder. He once told her distance meant nothing, but tonight every mile felt sharp enough to wound her. She whispered, "What did I do wrong?" Her roommate snored softly on the other side, unaware of the storm unraveling inches away. The silence weighed heavy, pressing against her chest. Her phone sat abandoned on the blanket, as if mocking her loyalty. Emily reached for it, craving Daniel's voice, but no call came. Memories surfaced of laughter and tiny moments of comfort sent through wires, each one now sour. She feared she was nothing more than an echo in his life, waiting while his world spun elsewhere. Daniel's silence stretched further than the ocean that kept them apart. Emily studied the old photograph pinned above her desk, showing them together on a park bench laughing under the sun. "You said I was your world," she whispered as her fingertips brushed his faded smile. Her chest burned with jealousy, imagining him walking beside someone else beneath foreign city lights. The image of his hand holding another's made her heart twist violently. She wanted to trust Daniel, the boy who once stayed awake all night just to hear her laugh. Her tears blurred the photo until their faces melted into smudges, cruel proof that even memories were fragile. Morning crept forward, but Daniel never replied. Emily scrolled through old texts, words glowing like ghosts. "You make me better. I can't imagine life without you." Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Then why does it feel like I'm already gone?" The city outside buzzed awake, but her dorm felt locked in silence. Each unread message cut deeper than the last. She wanted to scream, to beg for answers, but her hands froze against the screen. Daniel's name refused to appear. The silence devoured her strength until only ache remained. Exhaustion pulled Emily into stillness, though her mind burned with questions. She hugged her phone to her chest as if it were Daniel himself. His voice echoed in memory, promising never to let go. That memory sliced deeper than truth. Sleep dragged her into restless haze where Daniel's smile appeared, then vanished in shifting dreams. She whispered faintly, "Please, don't let this be the end." The sun climbed slowly, shadows faded, but the ache stayed rooted in her chest. For the first time she feared the distance between them was not miles but forever. The morning light crept into Emily's dorm room, but it did little to ease the heaviness in her chest. She scrolled through their old messages, rereading Daniel's words as if clinging to proof that love had existed. He once promised her that no distance could shake them, and she had believed every word. Her friends told her she was too devoted, too trusting, but she silenced them with a smile. No one knew how many nights she sacrificed sleep just to catch Daniel's late calls. No one knew the exams she stumbled through with tired eyes, because his voice meant more than rest. Emily whispered to herself, "If love asks me to wait, I'll wait forever." The room felt smaller, pressing her into the weight of her own vow, yet her heart refused to loosen its grip on him. Emily's best friend, Chloe, sat across from her in the campus cafe, tapping her cup impatiently. Chloe, with her sharp eyes and blunt voice, said, "You're wasting your life on someone who barely answers." Emily's cheeks flushed, but she forced a smile. She defended Daniel the way one defends a fragile glass heart, insisting that love took effort. Chloe sighed, shaking her head, whispering, "You deserve someone who's here." Emily's stomach nodded, because deep down she feared Chloe was right. but admitting that would mean unraveling every sacrifice she had made. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, staring at the foam as if it could answer the questions she refused to ask out loud. Emily returned to her dorm and pressed Daniel's name on her phone, waiting as the call rang endlessly. She whispered into the silence, "Please pick up." Each unanswered ring dug deeper, reminding her how far he was. She remembered when he stayed awake until dawn just to hear her study, his voice softer than music. Now his absence filled every second, louder than his words ever had been. She lowered the phone, cheeks hot with shame for begging into emptiness. Still, her heart held him tightly, convinced that if she stopped calling, she would lose him forever. Her reflection in the dark phone screen looked like a stranger, eyes hollow, lips trembling, a girl who gave everything for a voice she could no longer hear. That evening, Emily sat at her desk, scrolling through their old photos. Each captured smile was a reminder of why she endured the distance. She traced Daniel's face on the screen with her fingertip, whispering, "You're worth it." She remembered the day he told her he got the city job, how she smiled even as her stomach sank. She cheered for him while secretly mourning the life they lost. Now her chest ached with the weight of unspoken sacrifice. Every birthday spent alone, every holiday marked by a pixelated call, felt like a scar she carried willingly. Yet tonight, as the glow of her laptop lit her face, she wondered if Daniel carried any scars of his own. Emily walked across campus alone under the fading evening sky, headphones in but music silent. The crowd moved around her, laughter spilling from groups of friends, but she felt invisible. She remembered Daniel saying, "I'll always be with you." Yet the emptiness beside her was louder than the promise. Her feet carried her past the library, past couples holding hands, and she pressed her phone tighter in her pocket. It was more than glass and circuits. It was the fragile thread tethering her to him. Every step echoed her devotion, but every silence from him cracked that thread thinner. She tilted her head to the sky, whispering, "I just need a sign." The wind answered, but not Daniel. Emily sat at her desk late at night, the glow of her laptop painting her face in pale light, while Daniel's silence stretched like a wall she couldn't climb. She had sent him 3 messages since morning, each one small and careful, but not one had been answered. The cursor blinked on the screen as if mocking her, waiting for words that no longer came. She whispered, "Just one reply, Daniel, please." Her chest tightened with the ache of uncertainty. She scrolled through his social media, and her heart froze at the sight of a picture he had liked, a woman she had never seen, smiling beside him in a crowded cafe. Jealousy stabbed through her like ice, sharp and merciless. Her mind filled with questions, each heavier than the last. Was this the reason for his silence? Was she nothing more than a placeholder, waiting in the dark while he lived brightly with someone else? Emily pressed her palms against her temples, shaking her head, trying to silence the storm inside. She told herself she trusted him, that Daniel would never betray her, but the doubt was louder. Every mile between them felt like another secret she couldn't reach. She whispered again, "I'm losing him, aren't I?" The room seemed to close in around her, the shadows thick, the silence unbearable. She wished she could scream across the distance and make him hear the breaking sound of her heart. The next evening, Emily called Daniel again, her voice trembling as the dial tone rang endlessly. She whispered, "Answer me." When he finally picked up, his voice was distracted, almost annoyed. "I'm busy, Emily." Her chest clenched as she asked, "Too busy for me?" Silence stretched until he sighed and said, "You don't understand my life here." His words sliced her, reminding her that his world was no longer hers. She swallowed tears, forcing steadiness into her voice. "I just miss you," she said softly. He muttered something about work and hung up before she could say more. Emily stared at the phone, stunned by the coldness of his tone. She realized she was fighting alone, begging for scraps of the love he once gave so freely. Emily sat with Chloe the next afternoon, her coffee untouched. Chloe leaned closer, frowning. "He's pulling away, Emily. Can't you see?" Emily shook her head, insisting Daniel was just stressed. Her voice cracked as she said, "He loves me, I know he does." Chloe's eyes softened, but her words were sharp. "Love shouldn't make you feel this small." Emily felt her chest twist, but she clung tighter to her hope. If she admitted Chloe was right, then every sacrifice she had made would crumble into nothing. Her silence spoke louder than denial. She pressed her palms against her cup, letting the heat burn her skin, desperate to feel something steady while her heart swayed under doubt. That night, Emily walked across campus alone, the wind biting against her cheeks. Her phone buzzed once, and her heart leapt, but it was only a reminder from her calendar. She whispered bitterly, "Not him." Students passed by in groups, their laughter cutting through her solitude. She imagined Daniel walking with someone else, laughing the same way, his hand brushing another's. The thought left her stomach hollow. She clutched her phone tighter, whispering, "You promised me forever." The words vanished into the cold air, unheard and unanswered. Every step felt heavier, each one sinking her deeper into a fear she couldn't escape. Emily sat on her bed, staring at her reflection in the dark window. The glass showed a girl she barely recognized. Hollow eyes, tired face, lips pressed thin. She whispered, "Who am I becoming?" She thought of Daniel's laugh, the way his voice once filled her with light. Now his silence hollowed her out. Her phone buzzed again, but it was only Chloe checking in. She smiled faintly at the thought of her friend's care. Then the smile vanished. All she wanted was Daniel, and the ache of his absence burned hotter than kindness could soothe. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass, whispering, "I need you, Daniel." The city lights outside blurred through her tears until they looked like stars falling, unreachable, just like him. Emily sat at her desk, scrolling aimlessly, when Chloe's voice message appeared. With hesitant fingers, she pressed play. Chloe's tone was heavy. "Emily, I saw something." Emily's stomach twisted. Chloe described a photo of Daniel with another woman, their shoulders close, their smiles too familiar. Emily whispered, "No, not him." She wanted to believe Chloe was wrong, but the certainty in her friend's voice struck like thunder. Every sacrifice she had made suddenly trembled on the edge of collapse. She whispered, "Please let it be nothing." Yet deep down, a part of her already knew that the truth had been hiding in his silence all along. Emily searched Daniel's profile with shaking hands, her heart hammering against her ribs. And there it was, a tagged photo she had never seen. Daniel stood beside a woman with dark hair, their bodies leaning into each other as if the world around them had disappeared. Emily's breath caught. She whispered, "Who is she?" The comments below joked about how good they looked together, but none mentioned Emily. It was as if she had been erased. The distance no longer felt like miles. It was betrayal painted in pixels, public and undeniable. Her chest ached with a fury and sorrow she could no longer ignore. The photo burned in Emily's mind long after she shut her laptop. She replayed every unanswered call, every excuse, every rushed goodbye, and now they all made sense. She whispered into the silence, "He chose her." Her hands trembled as she grabbed her blanket, pulling it tightly around herself as if it could shield her from the truth. The promises Daniel had once made now felt like lies carved into her skin. Tears blurred her vision until the room itself seemed to vanish. She wanted to scream, but only managed a broken whisper, "Why wasn't I enough?" The question echoed in the stillness like a wound too deep to close. The next day, Emily confronted Daniel over the phone, her voice trembling. "Who is she, Daniel?" Silence stretched before his sigh came through, heavy and tired. "She's just a friend," he said, but the hesitation cracked his words. Emily's breath shook. "Then, why does she look at you like I used to?" Daniel muttered something about overreacting, his tone sharp and defensive. Emily's heart sank. The boy who once whispered devotion now sounded like a stranger. She whispered, "You lied to me." But he had already hung up. Her hands fell limp, her world collapsing with the click of silence. That night, Emily stood by her window staring at the city lights, each one flickering like a memory that refused to die. She whispered, "You told me I was your world." Her reflection in the glass looked hollow, a stranger broken by love. She imagined Daniel's laughter echoing in someone else's ears, his warmth shared with another. Her chest tightened until it felt hard to breathe. The silence of the room pressed against her, louder than any words could be. She knew the truth now. She had been orbiting his world, while he lived fully in another's. The realization struck with a cruelty that left her trembling against the glass. Emily dialed Daniel's number with trembling hands, her chest heavy with rage and grief. When his voice answered, cold and distant, she didn't hesitate. "Tell me the truth, Daniel. Who is she?" Silence filled the line. Then he muttered, "You're imagining things." Her breath shook as anger surged. "Don't lie to me. I saw the photo." His sigh was sharp, annoyed. "You're being dramatic, Emily." She laughed bitterly through tears. "Dramatic? I gave you everything. I built my life around your promises." His voice turned harsh. "I never asked you to." Her heart cracked, the words stabbing deeper than any silence ever had. Emily's voice cracked as she shouted, "I waited for you, Daniel. Every night, every call, every silence, I waited." On the other end, his tone was flat. "You made this too heavy, Emily. I can't breathe." Her chest tightened as she whispered, "I thought I was your world." He said nothing, just a long exhale that carried more truth than words. She slammed her fist against the desk, tears burning her cheeks. "You don't get to erase me like this." But his silence grew heavier, like a door closing forever. She realized she was pleading with an echo, not the man she loved. The call ended abruptly, leaving Emily staring at the black screen, her own reflection staring back. She whispered, "This can't be it." Her body shook with fury as she dialed again. But this time, it went straight to voicemail. His recorded voice, once sweet, now felt like poison. She screamed at the device, "Say something! Don't just disappear!" Her voice broke into sobs as she collapsed onto the bed, clutching the phone to her chest like it was the last piece of him she had left. The silence roared louder than her cries, filling the room with a finality she couldn't accept. Chloe rushed into Emily's dorm after hearing her sobs through the door. She knelt beside her friend, pulling her into a tight embrace. Emily cried into her shoulder, whispering, "He doesn't love me anymore." Chloe stroked her hair, whispering firmly, "No man who loves you would make you beg like this." Emily shook her head, clinging tighter. "I don't know who I am without him." Chloe's eyes glistened as she said, "You are more than his silence, Emily. You've always been more." The words struck like both comfort and sorrow, a reminder of strength she no longer felt. Later that night, Emily sat by her window, Chloe asleep on the other bed. She stared at the glowing city below, her phone silent beside her. Her voice was faint, barely a whisper. "I begged him to love me, and he walked away." The stars blurred as tears filled her eyes. She pressed her palm against the glass, imagining Daniel on the other side of the world, laughing with someone new at EQ. Her heart pounded with both longing and rage. She whispered, "You were my world, but I was never yours." The truth landed heavy, sharp and irreversible, leaving her trembling in the dark. Emily woke to the dull glow of morning light creeping through her blinds. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her chest felt hollow. She reached for her phone out of habit, only to find a silent screen, no messages, no missed calls. She whispered, "He's really gone." The truth was heavier than any dream. She lay there staring at the ceiling, realizing her world had shifted overnight. Love had been her anchor, and now she was adrift. For the first time, she wondered if she had been holding on to a ghost of who Daniel once was, not the man he had become. Thought broke her again, yet somewhere inside she felt a small, defiant spark, the possibility that she could survive even this. Chloe found Emily sitting quietly on the campus lawn later that day. She dropped beside her, handing her a cup of coffee without a word. "What?" Emily smiled faintly, whispering, "Thank you." Chloe studied her and said gently, "You don't need him to know your worth." Emily looked down, fingers tightening around the cup. "But I gave him everything." Chloe's voice softened. "Then let this be the last thing you give him." Emily's throat burned, but she nodded slowly, letting the words settle inside her like fragile seeds. For the first time, she allowed the idea that maybe she deserved to be free. That evening, Emily opened her journal, the one filled with letters she had never sent to Daniel. Page after page was covered in promises, dreams, and words she had written in hope. She traced the ink with her fingertips before closing the cover firmly. "No more," she whispered. For the first time, she did not cry. Instead, she felt the weight of release pressing against her chest. Daniel had been her world, but she was still standing here without him. She placed the journal into a drawer and shut it with a final push, the sound echoing like closure. Later, Emily walked across campus under the evening sky, her phone still in her pocket but untouched. Students laughed and moved in groups around her, but for once she did not envy them. She breathed in the cool air, whispering to herself, "I will be okay." Her steps were slow, but lighter than the night before. The ache remained, but it no longer owned her. She realized that maybe healing wasn't about forgetting him, but about remembering herself. She looked up at the fading light and allowed a small, quiet smile to break through the sorrow. That night, Emily returned to her dorm and placed her phone face down on the desk. For the first time, she did not wait for it to light up with his name. She sat by the window, pulling her knees close, staring at the stars scattered across the sky. "Maybe distance wasn't the enemy," she whispered. "Maybe it was love given to the wrong person." The silence of the room no longer felt suffocating. Instead, it was her own. A fragile peace filled her chest, not freedom yet, but the beginning of it. She leaned her head against the glass, letting the night wrap around her, no longer as his, but as hers. Emily sat alone in her dorm room, the silence pressing against her like a second skin. Days had passed since she had last heard Daniel's voice, yet his absence still roared louder than memory. She stared at her phone lying face down on the desk, the device that once felt like a lifeline, now a weight she no longer wanted to carry. She whispered, "This isn't love anymore." The words startled her because they sounded final, heavier than anything she had admitted before. She remembered his laughter spilling through late-night calls, his promises spoken like gospel, his "you are my world" whispered when the distance felt unbearable. And yet, here she was, reduced to fragments while he lived freely in another orbit. She pressed her palms together tightly, as though she were holding her own heart in place, afraid it might shatter. Emily rose slowly, walked to the window, and stared at the city lights shimmering in the dark. Each light looked like a story moving forward, while hers felt stuck in endless pause. She whispered, "I can't keep waiting for someone who has already left." The moment felt like a funeral, not for Daniel, but for the girl who believed forever was promised. Emily sat at the cafe, where she once dreamed of bringing Daniel someday, the cup in her hand growing cold. Around her, laughter and chatter filled the space, but none of it reached her. She scrolled through her phone, not to look for him, but to erase him. One by one, she deleted his messages, his photos, his words, each swipe like cutting away threads that had bound her. Tears blurred the screen as she whispered, "You don't get to stay here anymore." The weight of every sacrifice pressed against her, yet with each deletion, she felt something loosen in her chest. Chloe appeared at her side quietly, sliding into the chair across from her, eyes filled with silent understanding. Emily smiled weakly through the ache, whispering, "I'm letting him go." The words didn't feel like victory, but they felt like survival. For the first time, Daniel wasn't her gravity. That night, Emily returned to her dorm and pulled the drawer open where her journal lay. She hesitated, then lifted it out, her hands steady. She sat on the bed and turned the pages filled with letters to Daniel. Unsent, unseen, words meant to keep him close when he was far away. Each page carried her devotion, her longing, her belief that distance could never break them. She read a line aloud, her voice breaking. "I will always wait for you." The sound of it felt foreign now, like a stranger's vow. With trembling breath, she closed the journal and placed it on her desk. She whispered, "This isn't my story anymore." The silence around her didn't crush her this time. Instead, it felt like space, empty but hers. She curled onto her bed, clutching the pillow instead of her phone, and for the first time in weeks, she closed her eyes without waiting for his name to light the screen. The following morning, Emily walked across campus, sunlight warming her face. Students bustled around her, laughter echoing. But this time she didn't feel invisible. She carried no phone in her hand, no weight pulling her backward. Her steps were still tender, but they were her own. She thought of Daniel, of the girl who had waited endlessly, and whispered, "She's gone." For the first time, she believed it. That night, Emily sat by her window once more, stars scattered across the dark sky. Her phone lay silent on the desk, untouched. She whispered, "You were my world, Daniel, but I was never yours." The words cut clean, final. She leaned her forehead against the glass, tears slipping down her cheeks, but this time they carried release, not desperation. The night didn't answer, but it no longer needed to. It was hers now, and that was the last time Daniel's name ever burned in her chest.